Can no one see me? Let me give this a quick search. Oh, that's interesting. No, it's working. Oh, what the heck? As soon as I pull it up on my iPad, it appears on the laptop. Okay. YouTube was acting a little weird. OBS says we're good. OBS says the connection is solid, and now it's showing up in the playback. That's so weird. I don't know what you guys saw, but hi Ben, hi Visualizer, welcome back to the stream. And oh, you know what I'm wondering? There have been notification issues. I wonder if the notifications are delayed. Yeah, because look, when I pull up the channel on my iPad, okay, now it says we're live. I can see you now. Okay, could you not see me before? That's good. Hey, Unreal Cousins, thanks for tuning in. Okay, now it seems like people are just now getting notified. I don't know what YouTube changed, but all of a sudden notifications for live streams were suddenly much, much harder to grasp. But hope you're all doing well. I'm testing out Studio Light at the moment, but we have multiple different options to mess with. Desk View is probably the one most people want to try, but I'm convinced that it only really works with flat objects. If you do anything that has any sort of depth, it just looks really, really distorted. Does anyone know I can set up a keystroke shortcut to toggle on and off center stage? That's a good question. I would kind of like that feature so you don't have to go to Control Center every time. There's probably a way to do it. macOS has a bunch of shortcut features and stuff. I love using the phone as a webcam. It's unreal how good it is. I agree, Daniel Holloway. This feature is miles better than the onboard webcam. That's for sure. Hey, Snorlax. Thanks for tuning in. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. So in case you want a side-by-side, this is without Studio Light. I think Studio Light looks a lot better. Highlights the subject. But what's cool about Center Stage is that, okay, yeah, it's compressed a lot so you don't get as richness of an image, but it does support macro, which means I can get really, really close, and it retains a lot of the quality. You guys probably have never seen any YouTuber's knuckles in so much detail. And then it zooms back. But yeah, if I'm just like talking normally, then I turn off Center Stage. It looks a lot better this way anyway. Always a minute or two late when there's ads, so we never get the beginning. I've been doing a lot more streaming for the channel members, and it's definitely been delayed for them as well. More delayed than usual. Mine was not even showing up in the... Normally it shows up right away in YouTube Studio, and it was not showing up right away this time. But yeah, I thank you, Mubin. I appreciate it. Good morning, Dougie. Good to hear back from you. One thing I wasn't sure about is if I couldn't get the phone to autofocus using the main one. Wasn't it? I couldn't get the phone to autofocus. Well, it can autofocus, but the problem with the main sensor is that because it's so large, it doesn't focus on things very close to it. So if I do that with the main lens, it's just blurry. That's what the ultra-wide lens is for those macro shots. 10 out of 10 knuckles. I can try desk view. It's just not easy to show you guys because I got to show my screen. Continuity camera is amazing. I used it in my family's FaceTime call, and they were amazed by it, especially center stage. Dude, it is by far, without question, the coolest feature, pretty much the only feature I wanted to try when it comes to macOS Ventura. The other only more noticeable things to me is system settings being redesigned, which some people don't like. I'm personally fine with it. I like the concept of... Great. My neighbors love gas, don't they? I prefer the design symmetry with iOS and iPadOS and macOS all having kind of a similar settings app. I don't know why they call it system settings. I would just call it settings. But yeah, they give you oh, there's battery health now, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys saw that before. Can I pull? Yeah, I can, because I can just pick up this. Wait, let me turn off Studio Light, because we probably won't need that. But I can just pick up the phone like this and point it. I don't know why the screen is still on. Look at this battery health, normal. 94%, what the heck? Okay, battery condition says normal though. But yeah, it's kind of nice that you can just pick that up, move the camera wherever you want it. Although I am still using, for the record, I am still using the MacBook Pro microphone because I've found that to be a much better mic than what the iPhone typically has when you're using, because it's wireless. You know, if it's broadcasting a audio feed, it usually doesn't sound as good. Do you think YouTube Premium should have a no ad tier? Should just have a no ad tier? I was gonna say YouTube Premium is no ads, right? Are you saying it offers nothing else except no ads? I feel like if they let you pick and choose the tiers, it probably wouldn't be as profitable. The things that they are unlocking, whether it's the background play or the picture in picture or whatever, or the download, that doesn't really cost them anything. What costs them the most, the most expensive part of a user switching to YouTube Premium is that they're not going to watch ads anymore. So that's really what you're covering. The other features are just trying to make it seem like a better deal, because obviously YouTube Premium is kind of expensive. So if it was just that and there was no price cut, it probably wouldn't convince anyone. Tyler says tomorrow's iPad day. That's right. Oh, yeah. It's Wednesday, 26th. It is Wednesday, my dudes. 16.1 finally doesn't kill the quality of audio from other apps when on FaceTime. Oh, really? They finally got around to that? I mostly noticed it with Mac OS though. Is that what you mean by 16.1? Which Apple service do I use the most? I guess you could. There's that hummingbird again. Wasn't that disruptive? I tried continuity camera and it was great. I wish we could prop our phones up and use desk view on just our iPhones. Yeah, you know, even when I got desk view working the way it intended, it still just looks kind of funky. I think it would work a lot better if you were drawing, because if you're drawing, it stays flat. But I'm gonna try to activate desk view here. I don't think you guys can. Yeah, it doesn't look good. I can kind of show you what I'm looking at, but even if I put it exactly where it would be if I mounted it on the MacBook. Yeah, see, I'm tilting it unnaturally forward. This is not where it would naturally be if I mounted it on the MacBook. If I mounted it on the MacBook, it would be like here, and this is what you'd be seeing. Okay, Drew, just zoom in. Wow, yes, it looks great. So it's just one of those things that in only very specific circumstances I see it working right. And again, we did it during one of our older unboxing streams, and even then, like you get the warping because you just can't cheat physics, right? AI can only do so much. Final Cut got an update, said faster exports using Apple Silicon's Max. No, I did. Final Cut did get an update, but it was specifically for the M1 Ultra chip. It was so that you could activate the other HEVC encoders, because M1 Ultra is two M1 Maxes stitched together, so it shouldn't have any effect on any Mac that's not using the M1 Ultra chip. If you did get the M1 Ultra, it might be a bit faster at exporting now. When do I think the new Mac Mini will release? Probably at the same time as the new MacBook Pros, which I thought would have been this week, but I guess the more recent reports are saying next month. So maybe they want an October refresh and a November refresh. But yeah, I wouldn't expect a big change in performance. It's just M2 chip or a big redesign or anything with the new Mac Mini. They need a separate YouTube Music for YouTube Premium for like $5. Then I would subscribe. You would, but they'd be losing way too much money on it. The whole point of combining those services is because that's the only way they can make it financially viable. If they divvied them up, I don't think it would work. I agree it'd be nice from a consumer's perspective, but I don't think it would be sustainable for them. I use Apple Music, iCloud, and Apple TV Plus. I guess I technically use iCloud, but for like basic stuff, like I don't use iCloud Photos anymore. I don't use iCloud Messages. I send text via iMessage. I check email, and I use the Notes app, and I have the Notes app sync between devices, which is technically an Apple service. But aside from that, the Apple Card, in terms of like non-essential services that Apple offers, I use the Apple Card basically every day. I just realized that with Continuity Camera, you can now use your iPhone to record video directly to the Mac via QuickTime, thus bypassing the AirDrop importing process for me. Yeah, you don't even have to use QuickTime, Marngel. You can connect the iPhone via Continuity Camera. Let me try this. I think you can do it straight through Final Cut. Or no, it doesn't show up in there. That's weird. Yeah, I can at least do it through the webcam, but I guess that makes sense. Yeah, you could. I thought that wasn't a new thing. I thought you could already access the iPhone camera through QuickTime. It just wasn't necessarily. But yeah, you won't have to AirDrop, but I don't think you get all the. You can't do it at 4K at 60. So there's basically still reasons that you would want to record on the iPhone independently and then AirDrop. But yeah, I'm glad that's up. I'm glad you can do that now. I'm all in favor of Apple coming up with more ways of skipping processes. I think adding Thunderbolt to the iPhone would honestly be a really great way to do that. You could record ProRes video off your iPhone and have it be recording directly to your Final Cut timeline. And that way you don't have to record the video, airdrop the video, and then drag it into Final Cut. Um, what am I using to hold the phone? Just a tripod. I just have like a basic Manfrotto tripod. I know there's a Belkin mount you can get for like $30 that attaches it to the MacBook, but the point is when I'm doing, especially when I'm doing the behind the scenes editing live streams anyway, I have to pick up the phone and move it to different parts of the room depending on where I'm filming and stuff, or if I want to show you stuff. So even if I got the mount, I probably wouldn't put it on there very much anyway. Uh, let's see. I have an iPhone 10. You think I should upgrade to the 14 Pro? Wait for the 15 Pro, smaller screen one? It's all dependent on how your iPhone 10 is doing. My mother still uses an iPhone 10 and she's perfectly happy with it. If there's a problem with your current iPhone 10 that you think the iPhone 15 would solve, then ask yourself if that upgrade single-handedly is worth it. But I can't answer the question, which I get a million times a day. I have this. Should I buy this? It's like, oh, I don't know. What's your financial situation? What do you want to use it for? If it's just the iPhone 10 battery life isn't very good because it's old, I'm just going to say, no, you just replace the battery. That's a lot cheaper than buying a whole new phone. Which, yeah, I'm going to lean towards you should save your money if you can, especially in this economic climate, but not enough context. What do you use your phone for, Darth Vader? Do you have the iPhone plugged into your Mac for continuity? No, it's completely wireless. There's no, and I can prove it. There's nothing plugged in on either side, but I am streaming here. We can check our bit rate in real time. 0 frames dropped, which is pretty great. Someone earlier was asking about T-Mobile. Where is it? May have lost it. Or someone may have retracted their message or something. Pleasantly surprised with Stage Manager. Someone's surprised with Stage Manager? Good for you. I am pleasantly depressed with the Stage Manager. I was like perfectly like convinced that the older iPads could get it, and then they finally got it, and then I tried using it. I was like, yeah, this is not very good. I genuinely don't care. Eras4321 says you get your Apple Watch Ultra tomorrow. Congratulations. That's a big upgrade. Hope you like it. Can I use my iPhone as a webcam for my iPad? No, Fire, because that requires the iPadOS team to do work. And the iPadOS team does not like doing work. So no, that's not a thing. Typical phone stuff, but no games on the phone. Based on your response, I would say no, I don't think you need to upgrade. I would say don't wait for the 15 Pro smaller one. Wait for the 15 Pro to come out so that you can buy a 14 Pro for cheaper. Or if there's something the 15 Pro has to offer, you can at least wait for that. But if you're just saying basic phone stuff, no, I don't think it's just for that. I could live stream on mobile the other day without having 1,000 subscribers. Oh, really? I forgot they only allow that on certain channels. Buy a new phone in this economy. I'm okay with buying a new phone to you, but just paying full price for the newest iPhone is like, I'm really gonna discourage that unless you have a very specific use case that you think you'll benefit from it. Does look good. Let me do the Randy thing. Hey, Randy, I gotta try the Randy approach here and show off the macro mode. What else can I get a close-up of? AirPods? How dirty are they? Ooh, they're very dirty. You can enjoy their filth. In 1080p. Oh, Studio Light doesn't know what to do with them. Wow, that's annoying. I hope you guys can hear that. How is T-Mobile internet doing so far? I wish it was more available. Me too. I'm totally there with you. I would say It's still fairly spotty. Like a week or two ago, but again, it's so inconsistent because like right now it's doing great, and for the past week it's been fine. Um, but before I dock it too much, it may have been a problem with my MacBook Pro. I don't know why, but when I was live streaming from my MacBook Pro, it was often dropping signal, or the bit rate was getting really low, and that was making it hard to live stream. And for the member streams and stuff, they couldn't get much detail because the bit rate was like dropping below 1,000, which is where everything starts to look really pixelated. So I thought, this is annoying, what's up with T-Mobile? Restarted the MacBook Pro, and it was no longer an issue. So I guess I just get in the habit because I use my Mac all day, and a lot of the time I walk away from my MacBook and I leave it uploading or I leave it exporting, and then it's set to just kind of put itself to sleep, which I know it'll do after I finish the export or the upload. So just based on my workflow, a lot of the times I don't restart my MacBook Pro. So it had probably been on for like 2 months without a full restart, other than maybe an update here and there. And I guess that may have been causing the bitrate issues because when I streamed off the iMac Pro, it was fine, and that's using the same Wi-Fi. So honestly, in the past couple months, then I'm gonna assume that was a MacBook Pro problem. But the past couple months, it's been great. It's been pretty stable. I did a speed test last night, and it clocked over 500 megabits down. The upload is still back and forth. You know, a couple weeks ago it was 20, 30 up, and then after I restarted the MacBook Pro, it was back to 50, 60 up. So I still think it's genuinely good most of the time. Haven't had any like day long outages recently, just that one time I made a video about where they sent me the new unit and said that should fix it. But nothing cataclysmic, nothing that makes me want to run back to Comcast or anything. I love the price of home internet. It's still, for me, 48.50 a month, which is the cheapest Wi-Fi I've ever had in my life, and also the fastest upload I've ever had because there's no fiber where I am. So I appreciate the pricing of it. We'll see if they get hit by inflation because it feels like everything's getting hit by inflation as of lately. But thank you for reminding me, Mike. I use Stage Manager all the time on my iPad. It's really good for note taking. Interesting. Yeah, I guess I don't do enough note taking. That's probably the reason I can't find a use case for it. Um, Stage Manager is one of the more underwhelming features on both iPad and Mac, and my expectations were low to begin with. I have tried it on my Mac, and I don't use my Windows on the desktop like that. It's not a layout that I don't like use this set of apps and then this set of apps. It's like I just kind of constantly dart between apps one at a time. Not like I need all three of these apps to show up at once, and now I need all three of these apps to show up at once. I can't justify it. Um, so I'm sorry, Alex. I don't agree. He says Stage Manager is a bigger deal on Mac. I'm like, it feels kind of pointless on Mac, to be honest. Um, 5G internet's problem is latency. Their best is around 15 milliseconds. Verizon Fios latency is 5 milliseconds. I guess if you do a lot of gaming, that's problematic, but I don't. I do almost none. Um, Randy likes Stage Manager on the iPad more. I guess it's because it's the first like newish thing the iPad's ever had in a while. The way Stage Manager moves and resizes windows is really strange, but having more windows on screen has instantly proved useful. It's kind of nice, but I just find myself preferring the split screen. I find the two app down the road, like as soon as I open up a third app, I feel like I'm not using one of those because at the end of the day, yes, you can view multiple apps all at once, but they're all still the same old iPad apps that aren't that good because they're on an iPad. They're all watered down apps. They're not fleshed out apps. Although I'm interested in trying DaVinci Resolve, to be fair. My good friend Ross is a big fan of DaVinci. I've always been the Final Cut guy. He's always been the DaVinci guy. And I told him that it was coming to iPad, and he was like, they're probably going to leave out a bunch of things. And I I guess mostly agreed with him. But I still want to see how. I never thought that DaVinci Resolve would be on iPad OS before Final Cut would. It's kind of a more pro level, high end app than Final Cut is in a lot of ways. So I never thought that the A12X chip with 4 gigs of RAM would be capable of running DaVinci Resolve, or at least a version of DaVinci. So I'm curious to try that. I want to experiment with it when it comes out. I'm pretty sure my iPad Pro will support it. And yes, I'm using the MacBook mic. Do you think Apple should have raised the price of Apple Music when they added Dolby Atmos or lossless? They would have had a reason to justify it then rather than yesterday's price increase. Well, I think people would have been angry either way. I mean, Apple's statement was that the licensing fees for artists had increased, so that's why they were raising prices. So I guess they could have associated it with Dolby and lossless, but it still would have ultimately ticked off people, or they would have said, "Oh, it's not that hard to support it. This is just a cash grab." Like, you're gonna have that reaction regardless of what the context is. Um, I mean, adjusting for inflation for when Apple Music launched, it's technically cheaper than it was when they first launched it because it debuted in 2015, and there's been more than 10% of inflation in the past 7 years, which means that if factoring in the weakening of the US dollar, the Apple Music technically costs less than it used to, even at $11. Will DaVinci Resolve be available for iPads or just the M2? As far as I can tell, it's not just the M2. They said it will be coming to. I don't know if they said all iPads. Maybe that's what they meant, but it's not exclusive to M2. I know that much. It my guess is it requires iPadOS 16. I don't think they'll lock it. I don't think they'll bring DaVinci Resolve to anything that can't run iPadOS 16. But I wouldn't. I also wouldn't be shocked at the same time if they decided that it doesn't work on the iPad 9 because the A13 chip is just too slow or something. I wish they would do that. I'm kind of in favor of more software coming out that's like, this really only works when you have this silicon, but acting like you need the M2 chip to use DaVinci is ridiculous. Especially when Apple's been running Final Cut on, 10-year-old Intel-based MacBook Airs with Duo Intel cores and crappy RAM, and you could run Final Cut on those old 11-inch MacBook Airs, and now they're saying, you can't do it on an iPad Pro, it's too hard. It's like, you're just locking stuff. M1 only is something they would pull. Yeah, they tried and then they backed out, right? They didn't go forward with that. I'm not using center stage right now. I can though. I can activate it and we can. The quality is compressed a lot because you're digitally cropping in on a field of view. But this has been very nice when doing the behind the scenes streams because I'm moving tripods and moving stuff around and the camera tracks with me, which is fun. So I'm very glad to finally have it. I'm also glad I don't have to buy a new iPad to get center stage. I can have center stage without it. If Final Cut doesn't come shortly after Resolve, I'll be confused. I'd be very confused if it did. Why wouldn't they announce Final Cut with the new iPads? That would have made a lot more sense to me. Randy says, I'm typing this on the iPad on Stage Manager, the stream to watch and chat, notes for work I'm doing, Safari for my research. Stage Manager is fine at best. See, I feel like as soon as I start doing that, I'm ignoring one of them. I like, as far as iPad apps go, I can really only be doing like two at once, and then the other one is just kind of sitting there doing something. Wonder why they couldn't bring Final Cut to the iPad and now they are promoting a third-party app. Makes no sense. I think it would require the iPadOS team to do work. They'll let the third-party teams do it, but they don't want to do it themselves. Because I'm convinced that there's not much of a Final Cut team in the first place, or an iPadOS team in the first place. It's like 5% of the iOS team works on scaling up iOS features to the iPad, and because there's so little of that team, they don't get much time. So all they can do after a year of work is like, weather. And then macOS team comes up with Stage Manager and they say, okay, now bring that to iPadOS. And they're like, okay. But I agree, the resizing and the layout of windows on Stage Manager is confusing. It's just kind of clunky in my view. Like, okay, you can make it this size, but not infinitely resizable. And you can condense an app down to this, but not this. And it doesn't support that. And it switches between the two. It feels like a child's toy. It's like you're pretending that you're using a real laptop or a real computer because, see, the windows are layered. Oh, just like a real computer. Like, it's pretend. Can I try switching to the iPhone mic for a little bit? I can. I've done it before and you guys didn't care for it, but sometimes it glitches out. Let's see what happens though. We're not on beta anymore, right? So I'm going to switch. So now we're on the iPhone mic. I don't know what it sounds like. I'm kind of curious, but I have a feeling that it doesn't sound as good. Um, it's the same iPhone mic that we did on the previous beta tests with continuity camera. I feel like once the Apple Silicon transition is done for Mac, iPad will get its time to shine. I'm convinced of that as well, that they're intentionally waiting to update the iPads. 11-inch iPad Pro is the best size. Shouldn't have to sacrifice features for a smaller size. Well, there's that word again, shouldn't. Yeah, there we go. That's what I thought. Everyone's like, oh, it sounds like you're talking to a mic. Wow. Wonder why that is. All right. I switched it. Switched it back. MacBook Pro is much better. I agree. So I tried to warn you, but somebody asked for it. Not good iPhone mic. I also think that the iPhone mic is better when it's recording, when you're streaming from a wireless and compressing that onto the computer. It just sounds much worse. But yeah, that just says a lot about how good the MacBook Pro microphones are. I just love that like the video and the audio of this whole setup is still completely like Apple inside and out, which is awesome. Next year's major new feature will be a calculator and lock screen widgets. Yep, exactly. And there will probably still not be optimized battery charging. When I project my iPad onto my Apple TV while using Stage Manager, sometimes it crashes because of YouTube because it wants to go full screen for the video instead of a floating window. Oops. Yeah, that's a problem. Do you like using continuity camera? Yeah, of course. Of course. I almost don't want a webcam now. I'm almost at the point now where I would kind of not mind if they just ditched the webcam on the MacBook Pro. I know some people were like, no, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. But like, seriously, if they just had one size bezel all the way around on the display, no notch, no camera up there, and it was like, well, if you need to use a camera, just pull out your phone. Some people would be like, what if you don't have an iPhone, though? It's like, you think Apple cares? They're not going to do anything. Everyone wants Apple to support RCS as well, and they're like, I don't care, buy an iPhone. We don't need to make Android better. We're going to come up with as many reasons as possible to get you to buy an iPhone, and that would probably be another one. Plus, how many people are buying like MacBook Pros that don't have iPhones? Is there that many? Thank you, Connor, for the super chat. Should I wait for the M2 Mac Mini to come out before I buy an M1, or should I buy a refurbished M1 now coming from Windows? I appreciate the super chat. I feel like we've had this conversation. I don't know what I said last time, but I have a feeling it was something along the lines of, if you can wait, then yes, wait, because there's a good chance that there's a new Mac Mini coming out within the next month or so. And if you can't wait, then buy an M1 Mac Mini, certified refurbished or off of Amazon for cheap. Don't pay full price for an M1 Mac Mini this late. It's been out for nearly 2 years, which means if it's been out for this long, you can find it for sale elsewhere. I don't know the exact situation you're in. Maybe you need a new computer right now as we speak. If you don't need one for work or for school and you can get by with your current setup, then yeah, wait. Just wait a little bit longer until we get the new ones. Yeah, you're on the iPhone camera. I knew iPadOS wasn't getting all the lock screen features, but I was pleasantly surprised to see the new font at the very least. Wow, Skylar, you have very low expectations. Before they made iPadOS, it was just assumed that when a new feature launched on iOS, it was also coming to the iPads. But then they separated the two so that they could justify leaving out a bunch of things. So now iPadOS doesn't have this. Do you think the Mac Pro is the last step in the silicon transition? Well, yeah. What else is there? It's pretty much, other than that one space gray Intel Mac Mini, which is still a slower Mac Mini than the M1. I think they're just selling it to get rid of inventory. It's not that they're waiting for something to fill that in. I mean, the Mac Studio fills that in practically. What else is there in the lineup? A larger iMac? Apple's shown they're kind of comfortable just discontinuing that. They don't really care. So yeah, of course, that's the last step. That's the last big one. Let's see. Surprised how much I like Stage Manager on my MacBook Pro 14-inch. Well, I'm glad some people could make use out of it. I wish we could use the iPhone on top of our TV with Apple TV for video calling. I guess that would be nice. It comes awfully close to just FaceTiming with someone and AirPlaying it to the TV while you're FaceTiming. I don't know. I just feel like propping up the phone on the TV box or something would be a lot further away, so center stage would not be very high quality. And you have to like get up off the couch, put the phone down, and then back up. I'm still more in favor of. Um, I'm still in love with the idea of Apple developing a sound bar that's kind of like the ultimate media unit. So like HomePod Ultra, right? It's like a really wide, just like Bose has sound bars and stuff. It's like a really wide speaker, but in that speaker you can have your A15 chip or whatever powerful silicon you want to put inside that you plug in one cable, one HDMI cable to the TV panel that you're using, and then that cable is a center stage camera for if you get a FaceTime call while you're watching TV, you can answer it straight from the TV. And then it's also your speaker, obviously, so it could sound really rich and really clear and get way louder than the original HomePod did. And then it's also just like your, I guess that's everything, right? It's the camera, it's the speaker, and it's the Apple TV all in one thing. Whereas right now, even with my current setup, I have to have my HomePod right next to the Apple TV, and a lot of people have their Apple TV and then they hook it up to their surround system or something or their soundbar with a different set of cables. And I just want like one product, like bake the Apple TV features in the silicon into the soundbar, because there's just a certain amount of physical space you can't cheat, right? Like the OG HomePod can only get so loud. Um, so if Apple's against making their own dedicated TV, which is my ultimate idea, is like I would love it if we just didn't have to have external hardware, if we could just bake all of this into the display itself. But clearly they're not interested in doing that. But they are interested in developing TV streaming boxes like the Apple TV, and they're interested in building quality sounding smart speakers like the HomePod. So I'm like, let's just combine these two products into one. Matt Sloop, thank you for the super chat. Would you like to see Safari on Apple Watch? I don't think I would use it. I mean, I'm not like, I just don't think web is very well optimized on that display. Even the Series 7 and 8 displays are pretty tiny when it comes to any kind of browser. Like web pages are just not designed for wearables very well. I mean, I've opened links in messages on my watch that takes me to basically a in-app browser, and you can tell what it's like to use a browser on a display that small. I don't think I would use it. I would rather just pull out my phone if I need to do something that requires that much input. Just because web pages are usually so full of buttons and full of options and stuff, whereas WatchOS has to be kind of bare bones, like simplify everything. So I wouldn't be that pumped for it if it happened. I'd be kind of surprised if they did it. Anyone else hate the new default font for the locked screen clock on iPad, or is it just me? I wish we could change it. Well, I feel like the iPad should have gotten all the lock screen changes the iPhone got. I don't know why everyone's just comfortable with, oh, well, it's an iPad, it shouldn't get that. It's like, what are you talking about? Why shouldn't it? It's the whole home screen widgets thing all over again. They waited a year to add that. Randall says, why doesn't Apple TV have Safari? Darn it. Thank you for the super chat, Randall and Matt. But I just think that most websites are optimized for either touch on a phone or tablet or for keyboard and mouse. And the TV is neither of those. I don't really know how the UI would work with a remote. I think it would be kind of clunky, or you'd have to build in like a cursor or something. I guess there's why can't a third has a third party done it? I've not even tried. I've not even looked that up, but I thought I remember seeing somewhere that third parties have come up with browsers for the Apple Watch or browsers for the Apple TV. But have you seen someone do a good implementation of it? I can't visualize one because the Apple TV, you're just kind of swiping back and forth and up and down to all the tiles, and a web page is just not built that way. It'd have to be pretty clunky. Do you feel Apple is getting too complex and closer to Android with widgets, home screen customization, etc.? I feel like they are drifting from the roots of being minimal and easy to use. No, because I don't think there's really any other direction to go. If you're just talking about being minimal and easy to use, I think there is a way to add customization and features that is easy and intuitive, that's not complicated, and that's just typically how Apple implements it. Not too much at once, and it doesn't stray too far from the formula, but they are adding things because you got to add something, right? Like they can't just say, here's iOS 16. nothing's changed because iOS 15 works and no one seems to mind how iOS 15 is. It's like, of course. The point is, if you don't want much to change and if you want it all to stay the same, it can. You don't have to add home screen customization. You don't have to add widgets. You don't have to change the lock screen. You can now if you want to, but Apple's just more about trying to find a simple and intuitive way to add those features. I don't think being minimal and clean is about removing options. I think that is the beauty of software development, is finding a way to have both, because there's benefits to both. There's downsides to both if they're implemented wrong, but Apple's just constantly trying to carve that path of like, how do we make something customizable and intuitive and not too complicated and still minimal. So no, I don't think they're, straying from their path. I mean, Apple was like overly simplistic and overly minimal in the early days. Original iPhone didn't even have multitasking. You couldn't even change your wallpaper. So they could have said like, well, that's the way Steve wanted it, but no, Steve got more comfortable with multitasking and lock screen customization and wallpapers changing over time, and he got more and more open to it as time went on. So I feel like it's the same story with what they're doing now. Why don't you really care for playing them or talking about them much? Yeah, I played a lot of video games, probably not as much as my friends did. Like, we never had consoles growing up. But I did play some games on our old family iMac. I played a lot of Pod Racer, Star Wars Pod Racer, which I think is on Nintendo Switch now. But I just never had the same attraction to gaming that I see a lot of other people have. I think it's just a time thing. I feel like there's not enough time in the day for me to do all the things I want to do, and gaming is like one of the largest time consuming things in our daily life. Like, at least, dedicated gaming setups and stuff. But like, we talk about watching a movie that takes like 2 hours or whatever. Watching a TV show takes a bit longer, but a lot of campaign games and stuff take like hours and hours and hours. So I just never found. I played a lot of Minecraft, of course, in my younger years. So I've probably played more Minecraft than anything. Played a lot of Portal 2, Team Fortress, Counter Strike. Kind of back when Valve was the big deal. I played a lot of Half-Life 2, Gmod. What else did I play? Oh, Wolfenstein. What was the other one? I'm trying to remember the name. Zombie Army trilogy. Yeah, I played games. It didn't grab me as much as making stuff, making videos, making content was more fun for me. Fire TV has Silk browser, and how is it? Is it good? Every smart TV I've tried has had a browser. Not sure why they can't do the same. But tell me, are they good browsers? Are they the kind of browsers you'd want to use? It's great for crack streams for sports. What? We don't need the M chips on iPad. Why would we need them on iPhone? Yeah, iPhone would be a bad idea just because the power consumption is much lower on a phone. Like, iPad chip energy usage is pretty close to that of the MacBooks, which is why it's not that big a stretch, because like a lot of people alluded, the M1 chip is what the A14X would have been. It was like the extreme chip of the A14. So they're not necessarily interchangeable with iPhone logic boards and stuff, because the iPhone is much rightfully prioritizing battery life more so than raw performance, because iPhones can't really take advantage of the same. I mean, iPads can't either because of the software, but there's not that many use cases where you would expect or want an iPhone to do the same kind of things that an iPad or a Mac is doing. But that could change maybe in the future. I mean, especially if Apple gets into the like DeX-like features where you want to dock your iPhone with a monitor and then have the iPhone power the entire thing. This is actually a really cool concept that we talked about on the podcast a few months ago. I really love the idea of, because I'm using continuity camera right now, right? We have a camera that's much better than my MacBook webcam. So if we're going to be using our iPhones like for more and more stuff in conjunction, like the iPhone is helping the Mac, the iPhone is doing more for the Mac. If I'm going to put the iPhone on like something like a studio display or a Pro Display XDR, what if in the future, per se, we have an iPhone with Thunderbolt, so you can run a very high resolution 4K 60 frames a second feed directly to the studio display. And because it's Thunderbolt, the iPhone with its A19 or A20 chip, a super fast future generation 1 nanometer architecture, and that A series of chip is probably going to be faster than the M1 or the M2, right? Like the A series is going at this performance and the M series is going at this performance, but they're both growing. You know, eventually the A series catches up with the M. So if we get to that point, you could have your iPhone plugged into the studio display. The iPhone is running macOS on the monitor, and it's the webcam for the monitor, and then you just have a keyboard and mouse, and boom, that's your all-in-one design. And when you're ready to go, you just unplug the iPhone and go home and keep your Mac in your pocket, which you can't say very much. This is the continuity camera demo Steel made, and I'm using it as we speak. You best start believing continuity camera demos. You're in one. What do you think of MKBHD reviews? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Mr. Ben Cordby? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. He said, what did I think of MKBHD's review of the new 10th gen iPad? He said it's a weird product. Yeah, it is. I agree with that. I just watched that right before we went live, and he's seems to be a bit more tolerant of it than I am. Oh, he also made a mistake. That's what was jumping out at me. He said that the Lightning to USB-C adapter doesn't come with the Apple Pencil 1. It does now. I think he missed that, which is even more confusing. That doesn't explain things further. That actually throws things off more, because it means that anybody who's buying the iPad 9 now, which I think will still be most people, because I for the like blanket statement reacting to Marquez's video, I genuinely agree with him. Yes, it's a weird product, and they've decided that there will be some advantages and some disadvantages to that landscape camera. I don't think the disadvantages are worth it, to be honest. I don't think it was a good call at all. But the weird thing is that anybody who buys an Apple Pencil 1 today gets that adapter. And like he said in the video, most people that are like, I just need an iPad, they don't care about ProMotion, they don't care about Face ID, they don't care about Stage Manager, they just need a basic cheap iPad, they're still going to buy the iPad 9. What's the point of having a $330 iPad for the basics that just gets the essentials, but then $120 more for still a pretty crappy iPad, but it's crappy, but it looks kind of nice? That's basically its one advantage, is the colors are kind of pretty, and it looks a bit more modern because there's no home button, and it has USB-C and a squared off design. But $120 more out the gate, and then $250 for that keyboard case, which makes it $700, $800 for something that you have to use an adapter for the pencil to work. Like, basically, anybody now who's going to buy an Apple Pencil 1 and an iPad 9, which I still think will be most people because they don't care what it looks like, they just need an iPad, they are now going to have this useless USB-C to Lightning adapter. And they'll have no use for it at all. They're like, I need a new cheap iPad and I want to use it for taking notes, so I'm going to buy the Apple Pencil 1. Buys the Apple Pencil 1, boom, here's that adapter. What is that for? Oh, that's for in case you bought the iPad 10. But I didn't buy the iPad 10. Oh, I guess maybe one day you can use the adapter at that point. No, you don't have to buy the case, but it's the same story with the iPad 9. You don't have to buy the iPad 10 either. The iPad 10 is optional. If you're going for cheap iPad, it's not good at being cheap. If you're going for like future-proof iPad, it's not good at being future-proof because the display isn't laminated and you're still using a dated stylus with it. And the chip doesn't, the brand new iPad doesn't even support Stage Manager, so it's already being software locked out of features. It's an A14 chip, so it's not the fastest chip. It's not the fastest iPad. It's not the cheapest iPad. It's not the best looking iPad. It's just the one iPad that has a landscape camera, which I don't think that alone is worth all of the crazy compromises they made. Yeah, I would absolutely say get an iPad Pro from 2018. You can get those for cheaper than the iPad 10 is. Don't buy new iPads. I still stand by that statement. Sorry. Matt Sloop, thank you for the super chat. If the iPhone mini had a Pro version with 120 hertz and all day battery life, would you choose that over a larger size Pro or Pro Max? Not now, because I already have a 13 Pro Max. I think the question everybody should be asking themselves, and thank you for saying love your content. Appreciate that, Matt. I do miss the 12 mini from time to time, but my whole point when you're thinking about should I upgrade, should I buy a new phone, is you need to ask yourself, what is wrong with your current phone? What's up with the phone you have now? Is there something wrong with that phone that a new phone would fix? So I guess if some of you are like, I don't like the Pro Max, it's too big, it's too bulky. If they made a Pro Mini, that would fix the problem of the phone being too big and too bulky. I'm not really bothered by the too big, too bulky thing. If I was coming from the 12 mini and I already had a small phone, and then the new iPhones came out and all the Pros had 120 hertz, but there was a mini option, I would go, okay, that's the cheaper one, but I'll still get the refresh rate. Sure, I like that mini form factor, I'll try it. But I don't hate the Pro Max form factor. So now that I've already bought the 13 Pro Max, I'm just going to basically hold on to it until something's wrong with it. And I feel like there's a problem with it that will be solved by buying a new phone. They include the adapter for the Apple Pencil 1, but don't include the charger in the box with phones. Well, the charger in the box with phones made the packaging a lot thicker, which makes it less efficient for packaging. The adapter doesn't take up much more space, so I don't think it's that much of a double meaning, but the outcome of to me, just the whole concept of making a product with USB-C that requires a Lightning Apple Pencil to work, that's where they went wrong. The Apple Pencil 1 should not have survived this year. That should have died. If I was in charge of the iPad line, I would have. I know this sounds crazy, and a lot of people are like, no, that's weird, but this solution I'm about to pitch to you that I mentioned on the Tech Podcast, while it would have been weird, it wouldn't have caused e-waste. It wouldn't have been harder to get styluses to work, and it wouldn't have resulted in a bunch of kids losing things. And it wouldn't have resulted in the Apple Pencil 1 sticking around. It would have been a lot less confusing to the everyday consumer. It just would have been a little quirky thing. But okay, we've established, right? Let me use center stage for the macro shots because we can do that now. We've established, right, that for Apple Pencil 2 connectivity, you need this little charge pad on the side, right? That's how you get Apple Pencil 2. This is by far, no question, the best stylus Apple's ever made. Incredibly simple. It snaps to the side. 1,000,000% better than the Apple Pencil 1, right? Very simple. There's no cap that kids can lose. There's no cap to keep track of. There's no adapter you have to pack around with you. There's no cable hold on, let me connect the Apple Pencil to my iPad. Where's that USB-C? Oh, yeah, here's the cap. Oh, where's that adapter? Oh, yeah, here's the adapter. Let me plug that in. Okay, let me collect. And a lot of you were like, well, now you can use the Apple Pencil while it's charging, right? That would be a good idea. No, you can't. It still doesn't let you. Even though you can plug in the Apple Pencil to a cable connected directly to the iPad 10 so that it's charging, use the pencil with the display at the same time. No, it doesn't work. Just like the Magic Mouse, it deactivates it when you plug it in. Although that's probably something they could fix with software, but they don't. So, why can't the iPad 10 adopt this inductive charging method? Well, it's because Apple randomly, on this iPad of all iPads, not on the iPad Pros, no, God no, not those, on the random mid-tier $450 iPad, they decide we need to move the camera to the landscape orientation. People have been mildly annoyed by the camera location. I don't think it's a huge deal. I don't think that many people were complaining about it. It's a little quirky. It's a little bit like, oh, that's kind of awkward. But it was not like high on the list of product requests, from what I could tell. In my videos, when people were asking about what they wanted the iPad to do, there was very few people asking them to move the camera. Everyone was just saying, give it better apps, update iPad OS, make it more Mac-like. That's what like 95% of the comments were on my videos. But okay, sure, it's a little quirky that the camera's on the side. To me, the compromise would have been, all right, you got your charging pad here. You put the front-facing camera like here. Like not quite in the corner because there's buttons there, but not quite where the charge pad is. It's a little bit off center, sure, but it's a center stage camera at the end of the day. If it's a center stage camera, it's going to zoom in on wherever you are in the field of view anyway. And that way, if the camera is like at the 25%, you know, if this was 4 sections, put it at like the 25% mark, okay, it's a little weird. People would be like, oh, it's not immediately in the middle. But hey, it's a lot closer to the center than it was before. Because right now, this is always off to the side because most people are using their iPads in landscape orientation. And if the argument Apple used in their video about why the repositioned camera made more sense was because a lot of people are holding their iPads like this and their hands are covering the camera. If the camera's up here, your hand's not going to cover it. You could keep Apple Pencil 2 support. You don't need an adapter. You don't need a cable. You can get rid of the stupid and ridiculous Apple Pencil 1 that should have died years ago. And you have a better optimized angle for the camera. I don't understand why that solution was completely thrown out. I don't think that's a bad compromise at all. It's a little weird, I agree, that the camera's not immediately in the center, but so is the notches were a little weird. Notches were design compromises. I'd like to know the question. I'd like to know why iPad is fully training. What? Battery health of children and pretty fat. Sorry, Dustin. I tried to read the message before you send it. I don't know what you're saying. They include... Yeah, they don't include it in the box. Since when did it not include the adapter? Like 2 or 3 years ago, I got one and it had one. No, I'm not talking about that adapter. Not Lightning to Lightning. The Apple Pencil 1 comes with a Lightning to USB-C adapter. That's different. It's not the same thing. Let me pull up the what's in the box thing. They updated this. Like all the new Apple Pencil 1s come with this adapter, which I believe Marquez got incorrect in his video, but that's okay. It's a very confusing release. I don't blame him for missing that. Okay, Apple Pencil first generation. If I hit buy, 2 adapters have to be included. Look at this. Look at this. It comes with the pencil, which includes the cap, which the kids are going to lose. The lightning adapter, which is right here. So if you want to charge your iPad via a lightning cable, you use the lightning adapter. If you need an extra tip for the future, it comes with the tip. That's fine. But now it also comes with a USB-C to Apple Pencil adapter, which is required to pair and charge with 10th Gen iPad. That's what this is. That's the USB-C to lightning adapter, which, by the way, also needs a cable. So you got to use a USB-C cable and adapter to connect this pencil to the iPad 10. 2 adapters are included with every Apple Pencil 1, even though most people are probably still going to buy the iPad 9, which has no use for that adapter. Absolutely no justification for it. This is so mind-bogglingly stupid to me. I don't understand how they justified this in their head. Like, yeah, this seems like a good idea. I'm like, bruh, just freaking... There is a way. I'm sorry. As difficult as it sounds, Apple, it's not that hard to get a camera up here and make a pencil that does this on the same product, right? The only magnetic part is this middle section. That's where it lines up. So if you put the camera right over here, it would not be interfering with anything. It would get out of the way so that your hands aren't covering the camera. It would be in a closer view to, you know, when you're looking at your iPad and FaceTiming with someone, you're looking closer to their eyes instead of off to the side. You still have center stage anyway. It's going to zoom in on wherever you're sitting regardless. To me, like, Apple, these are free ideas. I'm giving you free advice here. That's what I would have done. It's a little quirky, but at least there'd be less e-waste. Very disappointed in the iPad 10. Great colors, terrible set. Yeah, I think everyone is. Missed it. Well, with the camera in that position, how will the Apple Pencil 2 charge? The same way it does now. The camera's over here. In my solution, this is not what Apple did. Apple pulled a doo-doo and decided we're just not going to have Apple Pencil 2 support. And a better solution than what they came up with, but not as good as mine, in my opinion, would be at least make a USB-C Apple Pencil 1. Just get rid of the iPad 9, introduce the iPad 10. Okay, it has USB-C. Can't get the Apple Pencil 2, but you could make a Apple Pencil that has USB-C on the other end. So you just plug it in just like you do on the iPad 9. That way you don't need a cable, an adapter. It's very quick. It's very simple. But in my opinion, the best solution would have been, I don't think that many people would have been upset with an offset landscape camera. I think, Marquez would have made his video where he's like, yeah, it's kind of weird that they did that. But I guess but if you did it at the same time with all the iPads, because that's the weird situation we're in right now, is like the iPad 10 has a better front-facing camera placement than the iPad Pro. You could spend $2,500 on your iPad Pro, and it's going to have what Apple considers to be the more awkward camera placement. Like, why pick and choose? Why not find why not find a one solution? I don't think the camera being here instead of here would have made that big a difference in day-to-day usage. Instead of moving the camera slightly from center in landscape, move the charging pad to have a slightly off-centered like it is in Samsung tablets. That's a better compromise. I don't think it would work, though, because, for one, I'm showing you a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. So because this iPad is big, there's, wiggle room. You could theoretically move the charging pad down here. But if you throw this in a bag, it's sticking out the side. It's going to get dislodged a lot easier. I do think that the pencil... Hey, look at that. It magnetically wants to be there. But this is a bad example because this is the 12.9-inch iPad. What's closer in size to the iPad 10 is this one. Another iPad in the household that barely gets any use. This is a 10.5-inch iPad Pro, but it's roughly the same size as the iPad 10. The pencil would stick about here. You can't move it very much. You could move it a little further down, but not a lot. It might... The problem is the magnets are not completely centered. The Apple Pencil has magnets on the top and bottom that help it kind of lock in place. So you might be able to get that to work. But again, the center of the iPad would still be about here, which is where the magnets are, even if you move the pencil down. So there's buttons up here. Maybe you could move the buttons like they did on the iPad mini. The other thing that confuses me, while we're on a tangent here, I'm sorry. Been making videos about iPads all last week. There's a video dropping today that's not about iPads. Congratulations. What if the pencil was on the left? There's buttons there and speakers there and microphones there. So on an iPad 10, it would cover up a lot of... I don't even think it would fit. Yeah, it would just barely cut it. But you would basically not want to put any speakers and microphones on that side, which I think the iPad 10 does have there. So I don't think it would be good on the left either. Dynamic island on all four corners. There we go. Another thing that annoyed me about the iPad 10, if you're advertising that the camera's now in the landscape orientation and that it's built for being used in landscape mode primarily, why didn't you move the Apple logo? Why? If it's meant for landscape use, why is the logo still in portrait? Shouldn't it be, spun a little bit so that it's... I mean, they already did that with the keyboard cases. The Magic Keyboard case has the Apple logo in landscape. Why don't you... I don't know. Free ideas, Apple. Free ideas. Yeah, Unreal Cousins is exactly right. The iPad 10 is just a worse iPad Air 4 in every way. Is it the case that the Apple Pencil 2 cannot work on non-laminated screens, hence why they were forced to use Pencil 1 and the 10th gen iPad? Please read. I can say please read. If I see please read, I'll be like, okay, now I should read. I mean, I'm already reading your message by the time I get to that point. I don't know if that's entirely true, but it doesn't sound right to me. I feel like if they're willing to call it a liquid retina display and they can do the curved corners and they can make the iPad thinner and make it non-laminated, then why? I don't think there's inherently something that requires lamination with Apple Pencil 2. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but in that case, I still think it should have been laminated. If you're going to go cheap, go cheap. If you're going to go high-end, go high-end. But the iPad 10 is just kind of the worst of both. It's not very cheap. It's not very high-end. They also changed the Apple logo to load correct orientation when you turn it on. Exactly. And if Apple's saying that most people use their iPad in landscape, move the logo. Come on. Or we could use continuity camera like we're doing right now and just not have a front-facing camera on the iPad. Bingo! Even more ideas. Why does Apple make some of the best products, period, and then have something like the iPad 10? I don't know what it is. It's very confusing. I feel like it was a boardroom misstep. It was like too many cooks in the kitchen. There was like 15 people that all had an idea on what they wanted the iPad 10 to be. And they all disagreed in some way. And then by the end, we just got this big vomit mess of an iPad. Oh, you have to pay extra for the logo to be properly rotated. Yeah, I've actually, because of continuity camera, I've been using my iPad more, to be honest. And it's not because of Stage Manager. It's not because of iPad OS 16. It's purely because once Subject Lift came out on iOS 16, I started using my iPhone to do all of my video thumbnails because Subject Lift is so good that it killed a lot of the need for me to do the masking with the Apple Pencil, which is mainly what all I was using my iPad for before, was just for making video thumbnails. And then once continuity camera officially rolled out with macOS Ventura, I guess that was just yesterday. It feels like a while ago. But once that rolled out, I started using my iPhone as my camera when I'm doing my streams. So when I'm streaming now, my phone is occupied. My phone is busy. It's my webcam. So I can't really make video thumbnails on my phone anymore while it's a webcam, because then I have to, close the app and hold the phone differently. It just doesn't work. So I was like, well, if I got to make a thumbnail, I guess I'll go back to doing it on my iPad because my phone is my camera now. So why is my iPad battery draining pretty quickly after doing the latest update to iPad OS 16? I don't know how old your iPad is. It could be very old. It could have had a hard most iPads, I think, have a hard cycle life because they don't have optimized battery charging. So here people are wondering why their old iPads battery life aren't that great. Maybe it's because when you plug them in, they go straight to 100% and stay there all day, all night. If you use them in sidecar, if you use them docked with a monitor, I would have used my iPad for an external monitor. Oh, and kill your battery. Good for you. It just charges, boom, straight to 100% and will keep it there indefinitely, and then drain it down, and people don't use their iPads as much, so they let it go down to 0, and then it dies, and then they keep it dead for months at a time. That's not good for the battery health either. So, yeah, iPadOS literally makes your hardware age worse. Base iPad has to keep unlaminated display because kids break screens all the time, and it's easy to replace just the glass. I understand that. I've heard the argument many, many times before, but if you're going to keep the iPad 9 in the lineup, then that's what the teachers are going to buy. The only change now that I think is a bad change is now all the schools and teachers and stuff that are obviously going to buy the cheapest iPad, which is the 9, now they're all going to buy Apple Pencil 1s that come with pointless adapters they don't need. And I feel like the Apple Pencil 1, I don't care if it can't support the Apple Pencil 2 or not. Maybe that you need a laminated display for this. I have not seen that confirmed. I haven't seen anyone claim that. You can still get very low latency with Apple Pencil 1 versus 2. But even if that's true, the Apple Pencil 1 needed to go. We needed a different Apple Pencil. We need an SE. We need a lower end one. If you don't want to do the standard, dock the pencil on the side thing, then come up with a Type-C pencil, or come up with Apple Pencil Education Edition, or I guess maybe that's what the Logitech Crayon is for. But Apple's really like offloading a lot of the solutions onto third parties. Like, DaVinci Resolve, you'll figure it out. Logitech, you'll make a better stylus. Like, come on. When you do a software update, the file system reindexes itself, so it temporarily uses more battery life. Yeah, but still, if your iPad is plugged in longer than it needs to be, it's objectively hurting the battery. And you don't always have that problem with Apple Watches, iPhones, AirPods even, because they all have optimized battery charging. They all learn your charging habit and stop at 80% and wait to go to full. Except the iPad. iPad doesn't do that. Ugh, it's annoying. When do you think a software... I already read that. Imagine if you still kept the 12 mini, you could have used that as your webcam and used the 13 Pro Max for thumbnails. I'd have less money, though, because I sold my 12 mini and I got a decent amount back for it. And then my iPad mini, not my iPad mini, my iPad Pro would just be sitting here doing nothing. So Then I would have a phone with 60 hertz and a phone with 120 hertz. Now I just have a tablet with 120 hertz and a phone with 120 hertz. That's the more Apple sheep way. Plus, when there's a new Stage Manager update or something, it's nice to have a device that I can test betas on. Um, Plus, there's, I don't run into it very frequently, but there are times where I need to mask something, and the Apple Pencil's a little handy here and there. But it does not leave this desk, basically. The iPad just stays here all day. I really want optimized battery charging because this iPad is either plugged in and staying at 100%, or I'm not using it at all for weeks and it dies and then stays at 0 for weeks at a time. Neither of which is good for the health. Whereas if it actually accepted optimized battery charging, I could just leave it plugged in at all time and not worry about it. I think you missed my super chat. Uh-oh. I'll say, oh, sorry. What did you say? Oh, I did. My bad. If Apple makes a foldable, it'll be named iFold. Oof, with the PH and everything. Yeah, that's probably. I think you're right, Hasael. I think you're right. Is your watch band a Nike one? Yes, this is the blue Nike band. It's actually the 42 millimeter, but it still works with the Series 7. And thank you, Apple World, for 14 months of support. My God. Thank you very much. My gut tells me the iPad 9 will be around for many more iPad gens as well. You're probably right. Now that it's stuck around for another year, I don't know. They'll probably see how the sales do for the iPad 10. Maybe if the iPad 10. Sometimes Apple makes really stupid decisions and then people still buy a lot of the product. So maybe a bunch of people will buy the iPad 10 just because they think it looks cooler. And then Apple decides that they don't need the iPad 9 anymore. But I don't think that'll happen. My prediction is most people will still continue buying the iPad 9 because that's the cheaper way. Pretty sure they could rearrange the insides of the pencil so the charging coil will line up to a different location on the iPad. Only downside is that you would need it to be a specific orientation. Yeah, it's not a great solution either because then you would have to make a new pencil. It would be Apple Pencil 3rd generation, and then all your old Apple Pencils don't work with the new iPad. So I don't think they want to change the magnets in here very much. I'm in favor of this is the best solution when it comes to a stylus. Bring that to all iPads as quickly as possible. If you want to move the camera, don't put it here. Put it over here or something. Put it out of the way. That way, it's not cutting in on the Apple Pencil 2 support, which is ultimately what all iPads need. I think they'll get the iPad 11 down to $399 somehow, then discontinue the 9. What could they fix with the iPad 11? What they could so many things to fix. I would prefer them adopt Apple Pencil 2, move the camera, and then yeah, I don't know. But there's like several better solutions than what they came up with, that's for sure. I think the iPad 9 will be replaced by the 14.2-inch iPad that was rumored. Something about that rumor doesn't sound right to me. I don't know, but it just doesn't sound believable that Apple would suddenly make a extra large cheap iPad. They just tend to not do that type of thing. They tried with the 14 Plus, and that doesn't seem to be going very well. I don't know what to use this for. Thank you for content. Thank you, Marngel, for 15 months of support. Wow. Just in case you didn't know, the reason why the iPad Pro's camera isn't on the longer side is because of the Apple Pencil charging. No, we had that whole conversation. I know the Apple Pencil charging is there. I've been saying this for years. I've been saying the camera should go here so that it doesn't cover up when you're holding it here, but it's more in the landscape orientation. But yeah, I know you can't put those on top of each other. Zell, come on. I've been saying this for a while. They could rearrange. I read that. Put a centered rear camera that can hinge onto the front to become the front camera. It can flip. Remember that old phone? There was an old phone that had a rear-facing camera that was on a pivot, and you could spin it to the front, so your rear camera was your front camera. Even though Gurman said that, I'm not trusting Gurman as much, especially with all the stuff he's gotten wrong in the last month. I feel like he's still gotten a lot right, though. I mean, he was right about it. I mean, he changes his mind a lot, yes, but he still was right that Apple, before anyone else, he said that Apple would be doing site refreshes in October. He said that the site refresh was going to be Tuesday morning, which we didn't really know when it was going to be, but he knew that. Oh yeah, you don't want a 16:9 iPad. I know you think you do, but once you start holding it and using it, it's not very good. Um, I have an iPad Pro 2021. Did not expect the battery drain like I'm getting now. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just iPad OS being clunky. I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying that the latest version of iPad OS and iOS are pretty battery hungry, and hopefully they can fix that in future updates. But yeah, even within a year of ownership with the iPad Pro, you could deteriorate the battery health pretty quickly because there's no optimized battery charging. I have a tablet that has its camera literally on a corner, like the camera isn't on the long side, but instead of the top on the corner side. I don't think that's a bad compromise because the complaint people have with the camera being here is that it's very often covered up because people hold their iPads like this. So put it up here, put it off to the side, over here or whatever. Problem solved. Keep your pencil. Seems like a good solution to me. Other than, but it should be in the middle though. Okay, but the pencil can be an absolute tragedy. No one's got any problem with that. It's all fun and games until they give us the option to turn iPhone into a camera for the iPad. I'm willing to guess that will not happen for 10 years or longer because iPad OS team can't do work. Oh well. Continuity camera is great though. I'm very grateful that macOS Ventura has been a very stable release. I've exported and edited several videos on the first public build, and it's been fine. No bugs that I can detect. I can't tell anything that's really wrong other than I guess desk view is kind of clunky, but that's just kind of by design. I don't think the pencil can be on the left easily, to be honest. Especially on the iPad 10, it's going to cover up speakers and buttons and stuff. iPad OS is also hurting my 2018 iPad Pro. 2 hours of note taking drained my iPad by 30% when it's usually half of that rate in iOS 15. Yeah, it's probably just that it's the first version. A lot of people like to ask me questions that clearly Apple is the only one who knows, but I am not Apple support, believe it or not. But Apple support is quite helpful. Swapping pencil and camera position will fix everything. I don't think so. Here's the size roughly of an iPad 10. You've got speakers here and you've got a power button here. If you slap this on the side, your pencil is literally going to cover the power button. So, unless you're willing to move the power button up here and the volume over here, maybe that might be a bit too much for people. That you got to have Touch ID up there too, and you're covering up the speakers, so the speakers definitely wouldn't sound as good with the pencil on the side. So I don't think that's a good solution personally. But this is the iPhone 10's last year of software support. Oh, it is. Oh yeah. They're not updating the. Well, we don't know that technically. They're still updating iPhone 8 with the what was it? A11 chip, and but they might give iOS 17 to everything that was on 16. We don't know. We don't know for sure, but I've had good experiences with Apple support. To be fair, I don't know. I didn't get the iPad 10. I said this is the size of an iPad 10. Obviously, I am living by what I preach because I did not buy any new iPad. I didn't get them 2 iPad Pro. I didn't get the iPad 10. This is a 2017 iPad Pro. There's some texts on here that I don't want to show, just because there's like phone numbers that are in group chats and they don't have contacts added to them. But yeah, you can tell by the rounded chassis. It's the same size roughly as the iPad 10, and this is the size of an Apple Pencil 2 because it is an Apple Pencil 2. And you can tell that this would interfere with the buttons and the speakers if you moved it to the side, which I don't think is a good solution. I updated my phone for the same reason this year. Maybe next purchases iPad Pro. If you need an iPad for any reason, because I understand that some iPads are good at things that you can't do on a Mac or whatever, or on an Android tablet, because Android is a whole other can of worms. But if you need an iPad, don't buy a new one. Pretty much all of the new ones in the lineup I wouldn't recommend. iPad Air 5, it's kind of pricey for what it is. iPad Pro M2, no, it's overly expensive and not that much different from the M1. It's iPad 10, way too many compromises and way too expensive for the crappy hardware that it is. iPad 9, I guess, okay if you want a cheap iPad, but you can find it cheaper elsewhere if you're really on a budget. So, like, Amazon will give you 2018 iPad Pros for under $500. And those are like far, 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 far better than the iPad Air or the iPad 10. Like, there's so many great secondhand options, but all of the great iPad options you can buy are not through Apple, except maybe the iPad Mini. iPad Mini's pretty good. Um, Also confuses me as how the iPad Pro and Mini have flash, but the iPad 9, 10, and Air don't have it. I don't know what that's about. Apple had some logic of the Mini being used more as a camera because it's smaller. I don't know what the logic is there either, but yeah, it's just bizarre. An iPad with haptics would be interesting. I remember asking for that years ago, but we kind of gave up when Apple gave up on 3D Touch. It was like, if you're not going to do 3D Touch, then what's the point? Um, but yeah, it'd be interesting to have a device that large going goo 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 goo, and you can feel things. Um, iPad Pro M1 was my first computer. Not sure why others love Macs much more. You'll find out in a couple years, Park, when they start rolling out new features to the M2 iPad Pro that they don't give to you, even though you could totally have them. For instance, you don't get Apple Pencil hover support, but the M2 does. Why? Because Apple wants you to buy another iPad. Yeah, I'm using continuity camera as we speak. I wish they would make an iPad Mini Pro 2. I agree. But probably just doesn't make sense financially. It would be a very expensive iPad that's pretty small and there wouldn't be a smart connector and stuff. Has the Mac lineup ever been as confusing or as bad as the current iPad lineup? If you go back to like the late 90s when Steve Jobs wasn't there, yeah, they had a very confusing, very distorted lineup. But I think it's just Apple high on the decoy effect. Every lineup now, they want to have a model that's objectively bad because they know that channels like, it doesn't seem like channels like MKBHD want to mention you should buy a certified refurbished iPad Pro or you should buy a Amazon renewed iPad Pro. I don't know, maybe in his mind, like, people just shouldn't consider secondhand because they have to buy new. But that's why I'm kind of leaning in the opposite direction, posting videos that are just like, don't buy new iPads. It's that simple. Um, but he was kind of doing what I think Apple wants all of the media to do. He was saying that the iPad 10 is not that good, and it's very weird and confusing. Just if you're going to spend that much money on an iPad, just get an Air or just get a Pro. And I think that's the decoy effect in full force. That's what Apple made the 14 Plus for. It wasn't because they thought it would be popular, it's because it's only $70 apart from the Pros. So it's like, if you're dropping $1,000 on an iPhone, don't buy the 14 Plus, which has last year's chip and a weaker display and a weaker camera. If you're dropping that kind of money on a phone, just go all the way. Just get a 14 Pro, 14 Pro Max, because when Apple's pushing financing, Apple Pay later, in 12 months of payments with 0% APR, they're basically trying to convince you that, well, if you opt for the more expensive iPad, it's really only $10 more a month, $12 more a month. It's not that big a deal to spend more. And I think the thought process is the iPad 10 convinces you that the Air is worth it, or convinces you that the Pro is worth it. No, Apple's not telling the reviewers to recommend older products, of course not. But at a certain point, when a YouTuber is reviewing the product, he's not sticking to the script. It's not necessarily an embargo after a certain point, but they want them. They have to be aware that when they make these design compromises and when they make the product objectively worse in a lot of ways, they have to be aware that a lot of people are going to say, well, that's not very good because the iPad Air is better. And I prefer the iPad Pro because it has this. And, I think it's the decoy effect. It's not like Apple is explaining the decoy effect in the script. Like, make sure to tell them to buy an Air or a Pro. No, it's like they're just saying, here it is. Tell us what you think. But yeah, I don't think Apple's the one telling them anything related to don't recommend older stuff. It's just that the media doesn't view that as an option for some reason. A lot of big channels and a lot of outlets just don't think you just need to consider, I'm walking into an Apple store, what do I buy? I can only buy what's right here on the shelves. You can't tell someone to go on Amazon. You can't tell someone to shop certified refurbished. I think that's the absolute best way to go. Best bang for your buck. You'll find the greatest deals and get way better hardware for less money if you go secondhand certified refurbished. And maybe that's not mainstream. Maybe that's not what people are comfortable with, but I think they should get more comfortable with it. I tried to convince my friend to buy a refurbished iPad, and he said, I don't want used despite acknowledging the glass and battery are new. I don't get that must buy new mindset, but it's out there. Yeah, and I'm just trying to say, like, I'm actively promoting it. I don't think just because people shoot down the idea we need to stop trying, because that's how the company wins at the end of the day. That's how they convince you to spend more than you need, is because you're sold on the concept that if you buy a used product, it's going to be a terrible half-baked experience. Where the truth is, it will be nearly identical experience to buying new. You're just going to have less money. And that lets Apple get away with being lazier and lazier with upgrades. A budget MacBook would steamroll the markets. Honestly, I hate to say it, but the $1,000 MacBook is is steamrolling the markets. iPadOS 16.2 beta is live and it has freeform. I forgot what freeform is. I'm sorry. Where'd it go? Freeform app. Oh, the whiteboard thing. I totally forgot about that. Where you can have lots of people drawing on the same app. That's cool. Maybe me and Mike and Randy should try that. We'll have a freeform collaboration. Should I install it right now? Does that sound fun? As we speak. Let me go to software update here. 16.2. Download and install. Don't look at my code. How dare you? What's wrong with you? All right. It's downloading. I agree to sell my soul. Take all my money, Apple. But yeah, it's amazing that this iPad is over 4 years old now. And it's basically undefeated by any new hardware that's come out. All right, it's installing. What do you think of Best Buy's Mac upgrade program? I haven't looked super into it, but I'm genuinely against the idea of upgrade programs. I think that's a very easy way to convince a consumer that they have to upgrade their machine every so often. Because like Best Buy doesn't know when the new Macs are coming out. So how can they structure the pricing to accommodate for upgrades and refreshes? Like, what if an upgrade comes out and it's not very good, but you're on that program, so you have to get the new one? I would much rather just buy a Mac that fits your needs and does everything you need and probably more, and then use that Mac for as long as you can until it doesn't work anymore for your lifestyle or your needs. That's what I did. I bought the iMac Pro in 2017, which at the time was probably way more computer processing power than I needed, but it was great and it was fun. It was overkill. I still have it, to be honest. I'm still using it pretty regularly, but not for work. I just play TV on it. But I used that for years and years and years. About 5 years went by, and then I was like, I'm going to be traveling more. I need to work on the go more. I need a laptop, but I don't want something slower than my iMac Pro. And I knew the Apple Silicon transition was coming, so my iMac Pro was getting the job done fine. It wasn't a bad machine by any means, but I wanted something that was ARM and Apple Silicon because I knew that transition was starting, and I needed a laptop. So I waited for the 16-inch MacBook Pro to get refreshed. It finally got refreshed, and I went overkill with it. I got way more storage than I needed, but honestly, I am kind of using all of it. What am I at right now? Let me look. Oh yeah, they make it harder to find. I gotta hit more info. Storage. Here it is. 4 terabytes available of 8 terabytes. So if I would have bought the 4 terabyte MacBook Pro, I would have filled it by now. That's interesting. I gotta delete a bunch of stuff, but I bought this MacBook Pro and it's been amazing. It's been great, and I'll do my 1-year review in the next couple weeks. I think I want to wait until the M2 MacBook Pros come out to do the review, but I want to use this basically until it doesn't work anymore, and then I'll upgrade again based on what I need at that time. I will not review the Meta Quest Pro. Sorry, I don't like Meta and I don't want to support them if I can help it. Okay, here, Michael Burkhart probably knows a lot about this going on. M1 MacBook Air has gone on sale for like $800 a lot, brand new from Amazon. That's a great buy. That's an awesome deal, I think. Especially considering it's an all-in-one. You got your keyboard, trackpad, battery, display, everything. I don't think there's that many people who really need the iPad 10 or Air, Pro 11 Mini, or iPad 9, or the main significant ones. Well, yeah, I mean, you're just saying people don't need an iPad. Yes, I agree. But Apple is doing the decoy effect for every product category they have nowadays: iPhones, iPads, Macs, Watch, even the Apple TV. What's the decoy with the Apple TV? I don't know if I agree with that. I have never felt more happy with the Apple TV line in its current state, to be honest. There's no more Apple TV HD, thank God. That thing died. The price starts at much lower than it used to be. I think when they launched tvOS, the box itself was $150. Now it's $130 plus all the inflation. Like, dang. It has an A15 chip in it, and they switched the remote to USB-C. There is still a decoy effect for the Apple Watch. It's on the Steel Series 8. The Series 8 is not that different because it makes you want to get the Ultra more. Ultra only costs a little bit more than the Steel Series 8. So why don't just go all the way and get the Ultra? Convinces you to spend more than if that option wasn't there. So the Series 8, in my view, is the decoy. The Series 8 makes the Ultra look good. Apple TV HD was the decoy, but it's gone. It's not there anymore. Michael Burkhart says, Best Buy's Mac upgrade program is garbage. It's 36-month financing, basically, and once you pay off 70% of the Mac, you can either return it, pay more to own it, or you get a new Mac. If you pay more to own it, it's basically just financing it at that point. If you upgrade or return, you basically spend hundreds on a computer you won't keep. 70% of a Mac isn't cheap. No, I agree. I didn't look into it, but that's typically how those upgrade programs work. Only HDMI is missing. Do you mean Ethernet? Let's see. Do you think M3 13-inch MacBook Pro is going to get a redesign? Oh, that's a good question. It should, but it probably won't. Seems like Apple likes to recycle old designs, and as long as that M2 MacBook Pro sells pretty well, which unfortunately it probably is, then yeah, they'll probably not redesign it, I'm guessing. I wish they would. I wish they would make like a cheaper 14-inch MacBook Pro. Maybe it's 60 hertz. Maybe it's not mini LED, but it still has the ports, and it can have the M3, but not the M3 Pro or something. Get rid of the touch bar, give it the full-size function keys and everything. I mean, I like the touch bar, but come on, it's time. Its time has come. Stainless steel Series 8 and Ultra are for two completely different demographics. I'm in the boat of people who want the stainless steel watches because the Apple Watch is also a piece of fashion for me. Well, sure. And I think that you could make the same argument for iPhone 14 Plus is for someone who wants the better battery life, and the Pro Max is for someone who wants a better camera and better display. But yeah, I just don't understand why so many of you bought the Series 8 and not the Series 7. It's just so insanely similar. But I do think that the price being not that great on the Series 8 does make people feel like a lot of people were buying the steel for the durability. I know I definitely was buying it for the durability, but it's like slightly more glossy than the aluminum version. So yeah, it's going for a specific demographic, but the price is awfully close. SE2 being $250. It's not as harsh as the 14 Plus is definitely a more obvious decoy effect, but I still see the decoy effect in the watch line. Yeah, I would have recommended a stainless steel Series 7 from Apple refurbished. They're $550 for the large size and $520 for the 41. I agree. I think that's a much better deal than the stainless steel Series 8. Alex says, "Oh no, I have the Series 8. I only say Series. I have the Series 7. I only say Series 8 because it's the newest." There you go. I really wish that Apple improves voice dictation and Siri voice assistant. Well, we've been down that rabbit hole, but anyway, I could probably do this all night if I'm not careful. So I think I'll wrap it up here. But don't fret. while the live stream is ending, I do have a tech video for you guys. It should be done processing by now. Yep, it is. So I'm going to sign off here and thank you guys for watching. But there's an extra long skit in this one, so I hope you guys like the skits. But I'm pasting the link in the chat now. Check out the new tech vid, and I hope you enjoy it. It's on the new Apple TV. Oh, and I forgot to hit publish. So don't leave. Now you can leave. Now it's public. The link should work now. So enjoy the new tech video. Thank you all for your super chats and your memberships and everyone supporting. I really, really appreciate it. Seriously, it makes a big difference. And I hope you have an excellent evening. Thanks, Continuity Camera. This is the new cam view for the rest of our live streams. Take care, all. Bye-bye.